My in-laws went on vacation to Hawaii, leaving me to care for my sister-in-law's supposedly mute, bedridden daughter. But as soon as they left, she stood up and said, "They want my $5 million. Please help me." Together we came up with a plan, and when the family returned, I never thought I'd find myself in the middle of a family conspiracy. But that's exactly what happened last summer, when my in-laws decided to take that fateful trip to Hawaii. Let me back up a bit and introduce myself. I'm Alex Turner, a 30-something graphic designer who somehow managed to marry into the Bennett family. Old money, old problems, you know the type. My wife Rachel is the black sheep of the family. She chose art school over business school, married me, a regular guy with student loans, instead of the hedge fund manager her parents had picked out. And worst of all, at least according to her parents, she speaks her mind at family gatherings. The Bennetts don't like when people speak their minds, especially when those minds disagree with Harold and Margaret Bennett. Harold made his fortune in pharmaceuticals, something Rachel always found ironic given what we later discovered. Their sprawling estate in Greenwich, Connecticut is basically a monument to their success. 6 bedrooms, indoor pool, tennis court, the works. Meanwhile, Rachel and I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, and we're perfectly happy with that. We see her family mainly during holidays or the occasional Sunday dinner that feels more like a military inspection than a family gathering. Then there's Lily. Sweet, quiet Lily. Rachel's niece through her older sister Sophia. According to the family, Lily suffered from some rare neurological condition that left her bedridden and unable to speak about 3 years ago, right after her 21st birthday. Convenient timing, as I would later learn. Whenever we visited, Lily would just lie there, eyes following us around the room. Rachel always said there was something off about the whole situation, but her concerns were dismissed as medical ignorance by Dr. He0.com. Campbell, the family's personal physician, who seemed to appear whenever difficult questions were asked. "She has good days and bad days," Sophia would say with practiced sympathy while stroking her daughter's hair. "We're just thankful she's still with us." James, Lily's father, would nod solemnly from the corner, never adding much to these conversations. I always noticed how he couldn't quite look at his daughter directly. I should have recognized guilt when I saw it. The call came on a Tuesday. Margaret's voice, crisp and commanding as always. "Alexander, we need a favor." Not, "Could you possibly?" or "Would you mind?" The Bennetts didn't ask. They informed. They were taking a 2-week family vacation to Hawaii. Harold, Margaret, Sophia, and James. Their regular nurse had quit unexpectedly, another red flag I missed, and they needed someone to stay with Lily. Since Rachel was away at an art exhibition in Chicago that week, and I worked remotely, I was the logical choice. "I don't know the first thing about caring for someone with Lily's condition," I protested, but Margaret had already anticipated my objection. "It's quite simple, really. She needs her medication 3 times daily. Meals can be prepared by the housekeeper, and you just need to be there in case of emergency. Sophia will show you everything before we leave." Her tone made it clear this wasn't actually a request. Rachel encouraged me to do it when I called her that night. "Maybe you can figure out what's really going on with Lily," she said. "Something's not right there, Alex. I can feel it." She wasn't wrong, but neither of us could have imagined just how not right things actually were. I arrived at the Bennett estate the following morning with a duffel bag and my laptop, still unsure how I'd been roped into this. Harold met me at the door with a firm handshake and a clap on the shoulder that felt more threatening than friendly. "We appreciate this, Alexander. Family helps family." I just nodded and smiled, not feeling much like family as Margaret led me upstairs to what would be my room for the next 2 weeks, just down the hall from Lily's. Little did I know that walking into that house would change everything. For me, for Lily, and for the Bennett family fortune. The training session with Sophia was intense. She walked me through Lily's medication schedule with military precision, showing me the array of pills sorted into labeled containers. "This one is for muscle spasms. These 2 are for nerve pain. This prevents seizures, and these help her sleep," she explained, not making eye contact. I noticed her hands trembling slightly as she demonstrated how to crush certain pills into Lily's food. "Doesn't she have trouble swallowing?" I asked, thinking that might explain the need to hide medication in food. "Sometimes she's resistant," Sophia replied, her voice tight. "It's part of her condition. She doesn't always understand what's good for her." The way she said it sent a chill down my spine. I glanced at Lily, who was lying in her bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Did I imagine the slight narrowing of her eyes when her mother said those words? Probably just my imagination working overtime. James hovered in the doorway during this tutorial, checking his watch repeatedly. "We need to go soon if we're going to make our flight," he muttered, clearly uncomfortable being in his daughter's room. What kind of father acts nervous around his own kid? I wondered, but kept the thought to myself. Margaret swept into the room with a thick binder, which she thrust into my hands. "This contains all emergency contacts, including Dr. Campbell's private number. He's aware you'll be staying here." She lowered her voice, though Lily could supposedly hear everything anyway. There have been incidents when her medication schedule was disrupted. We cannot emphasize enough how important adherence to the schedule is. Harold joined us last, carrying a small bag. The security system is state-of-the-art. The code is 4729, but don't worry about setting it. It arms automatically at 11 p.m. and disarms at 6 a.m. He placed the bag on a dresser. There's also a separate lock on the medicine cabinet. He is in here, along with some spending money for any incidentals. It all seemed excessive for someone who supposedly couldn't get out of bed. I wondered briefly if they were more concerned about keeping people out or keeping Lily in. The most uncomfortable part was when they said goodbye to Lily. Margaret bent down, kissed her forehead with all the warmth of a snake, and whispered, "Be good for Alex, dear. We'll be back before you know it." Harold just gave a stiff nod. James waited until Sophia had done her part stroking Lily's hair and promising to bring back a souvenir before quickly touching his daughter's hand and practically fleeing the room. Once they left, the massive house fell into an eerie silence. Mrs. Garcia, the housekeeper, showed me where everything was in the kitchen before leaving at 5 p.m. "I come back tomorrow at 9, she told me. "Miss Lily likes her breakfast at 8. Simple oatmeal with honey, nothing else." That first afternoon was awkward as hell. I set up my laptop in Lily's room, figuring I should at least try to be companionable. I worked on a design project while occasionally glancing at her. She looked so small in that giant 4-poster bed, surrounded by medical equipment that I now realized seemed mostly for show. There was a heart rate monitor, but it wasn't connected to any emergency service. An oxygen tank stood in the corner, but the mask had a fine layer of dust on it. When dinner time came around, I heated up the meal Mrs. Garcia had prepared and brought it upstairs. The instructions said to assist Lily with eating, which basically meant spoon-feeding her while trying not to feel like I was babying a grown woman. She accepted each bite mechanically, her eyes fixed somewhere past my shoulder. If I didn't know better, I'd say she was deliberately avoiding eye contact. That night was when things started getting weird. I was awakened around 3 a.m. by what sounded like footsteps in the hallway. I jumped out of bed, heart pounding, and cracked open my door. The hallway was empty, but I could have sworn Lily's door was open just a crack when I was sure I'd closed it after her evening medication. I checked on her, finding her exactly as I'd left her, seemingly asleep. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something odd. A drawer that I was certain had been closed was now slightly open. I chalked it up to my tired imagination and went back to bed. But sleep was a long time coming. The next morning, I found a note from Mrs. Garcia saying she couldn't come in due to a family emergency. Great. I was now on full caretaker duty, with no backup. I made Lily's oatmeal as instructed, and brought it upstairs along with her morning pills. As I pushed open her door, balancing the tray carefully, I was mentally preparing myself for another day of awkward, one-sided conversation. What I wasn't prepared for was finding Lily sitting upright in bed, staring directly at me with clear, alert eyes that held none of the vacant look I'd seen before. And I definitely wasn't prepared for what happened next. I nearly dropped the tray. Lily's eyes fully alert now tracked the wobble of the oatmeal bowl as I regained my balance. something was different. The vacant stare was gone, replaced by focused intensity I hadn't seen before. "Good morning, Lily," I said casually, trying to hide my surprise. "Mrs. Garcia couldn't make it today, so I made your breakfast." I set the tray down on the bedside table and reached for the pill container. "Time for your morning meds, too." That's when it happened. As I turned back toward her, Lily's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, not with the weak grip of someone bedridden for years, but with surprising strength. I froze, shocked into silence. "Don't," she said, her voice raspy from disuse but perfectly clear. "Don't give me those pills." I stared at her, mouth hanging open like an idiot. 3 years of supposed muteness, and here she was, talking to me. My brain struggled to process what was happening. You can talk?" I managed to stammer out. Lily released my wrist and slowly, deliberately pushed herself up to a fully seated position. Her movements were stiff but determined, like someone remembering how their body worked. "They only think I can't," she whispered, her eyes darting to the door as if expecting someone to burst in. "I've been pretending. It was the only way to survive while I figured out what to do." I sank down onto the chair beside her bed, the pills forgotten. "Pretending? For 3 years? Lily, what the hell is going on?" She took a deep breath, wincing slightly. "They want my 5 million. Please, help me." Her words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them in forever and couldn't contain them anymore. "My grandparents, my mother's parents, not Harold and Margaret, they left me a trust fund. I get access when I turn 25 or if I get married. That's less than a year away now." My mind was reeling. Rachel had mentioned something about Lily's maternal grandparents passing away around the time she got sick, but the connection hadn't clicked until now. "Are you saying your family, your own parents, are keeping you drugged to control your money?" Even saying it out loud sounded insane. Lily's eyes welled with tears. "It started small. After Grandma and Grandpa died, Mom and Dad were having money problems. Big ones. They borrowed against their expectation of my trust, but then realized I wasn't planning to share it. We had a huge fight the night of my 21st birthday." She swallowed hard. "The next morning, I couldn't get out of bed. Everything was fuzzy. Dr. Campbell diagnosed some rare condition, and suddenly I was taking 10 different medications a day." "Jesus Christ," I muttered, looking at the pills on the nightstand with horror. "What are these, really?" "Sedatives, mostly. Some antipsychotics. Anything to keep me compliant and make me seem incapable of managing my affairs." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, like each word was an act of rebellion. "They're building a case to have me declared mentally incompetent when I turn 25, so they can take control of the trust permanently." My stomach turned. I thought about all the times we'd visited, how Sophia would stroke Lily's hair with that practiced sympathy, how James could never look his daughter in the eye. It all made sickening sense now. "How have you been functioning?" I asked, "if they've been drugging you all this time?" A hint of pride flashed across her face. "I started small, hiding pills under my tongue, spitting them out later. Then I worked up to palming them or hiding them in my cheek. It took months to get my head clear enough to even think straight." She gestured to the slightly open drawer I'd noticed last night. "I've been keeping a record of everything. Dates, medications, conversations they have when they think I can't understand." "That's why they were so insistent about the medication schedule," I said, pieces falling into place. "But why risk talking to me? How do you know I won't just call them right now?" Lily's gaze was steady despite the fear evident in her voice. "Rachel trusts you. She's the only one who ever looked at me like I was still in here." She tapped her temple. "And I've watched you. You notice things others don't. Like last night, when you saw the drawer." I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process everything. "So what now? They'll be back in less than 2 weeks." "Now," she said, a determined look replacing the fear, "we make a plan. Because when they come back from Hawaii, everything changes. I'm not going back to being their puppet. Either they go to jail, or I get my freedom and my money. Preferably both." I stared at the young woman before me, so different from the vacant-eyed invalid I thought I knew. "You realize how dangerous this could be? These people have been essentially committing a crime against you for years. they won't just give up. Lily's jaw set in a way that reminded me of Rachel when she was dead serious about something. I've spent 3 years of my life as a prisoner in my own body. I'm done being afraid of them. In that moment, looking at her determined face, I made my decision. I picked up the container of pills, walked to the bathroom connected to her room, and flushed every last one down the toilet. "Okay," I said, returning to her bedside. "Let's take these bastards down." With every hour that passed without the medication, Lily became more alert, more herself. By afternoon, she was sitting in a chair by the window, her first time out of bed in front of someone else in years. Her legs were weak from disuse, but her mind was razor sharp. "I need you to understand everything," she said, watching clouds drift past outside. "So you know exactly what we're up against." She told me her story in bits and pieces, sometimes needing to pause when emotions overwhelmed her. Her maternal grandparents, Edward and Eleanor Sullivan, had built a successful chain of boutique hotels across New England. They'd always been closer to Lily than to their own daughter Sophia, who they felt had married James Bennett for his family connections rather than love. "Grandpa used to say Mom had $signs for pupils," Lily explained with a sad smile. "He wasn't wrong. When I was growing up, my parents were always chasing the next business opportunity, the next social connection. They lived beyond their means, trying to keep up with Harold and Margaret's lifestyle." The Sullivans had watched this pattern with growing concern. When they updated their will, they decided to place their substantial assets, just over $5 million, into a trust for their only grandchild. The terms were specific. Lily would gain full control either upon turning 25 or upon marriage, whichever came first. Until then, a small monthly stipend would be provided for her education and basic needs. "They told me about it on my 20th birthday," Lily said. "Mom and Dad weren't there. They were at some charity gala with Harold and Margaret. Grandpa said he wanted to make sure I had options in life, that I didn't feel trapped by family expectations the way my mother had." 3 months later, both Sullivans died within weeks of each other. Edward from a heart attack, Eleanor from what seemed like a broken heart shortly after. Lily was devastated, but life continued. She was in her 3rd year at NYU, studying environmental science and dating a guy named Michael who she thought might be the one. "I made the mistake of telling my parents everything over dinner on my 21st birthday," she continued, voice hardening. "About the trust, about Michael, about my plans to maybe get married after graduation and use some of the money to start an environmental consulting firm." The reaction was explosive. James accused her of being naive and impulsive. Sophia reminded her of family obligations and how the money could solve their ongoing financial problems. When Lily stood firm, the argument escalated. Dad slammed his hand on the table so hard the glasses tipped over. He said, "You ungrateful little brat. After everything we've done for you." Mom was crying, saying I was betraying the family. Lily's voice wavered. "I'd never seen them like that. I left and went back to my dorm." The next morning, they showed up saying they wanted to apologize over breakfast. Her next memory was waking up in her childhood bedroom, groggy and confused. Dr. Campbell was there, explaining that she'd had some kind of neurological event. Tests would need to be run. Temporary treatments would begin immediately. "At first, I really thought I was sick," Lily admitted. "The medication kept me so out of it that I couldn't think straight. Days blurred together. Michael came to visit once, but they wouldn't let him see me alone. A week later, Mom told me he'd decided to break things off because he couldn't handle my condition. I found out much later from a friend that they told him visiting was only upsetting me and making my condition worse." Within a month, Lily had been declared medically unable to continue her education. Within 2 months, her parents had power of attorney for health decisions. By the 6-month mark, they had moved her into Harold and Margaret's mansion for better care, and Dr. Campbell was making regular house calls. "That's when I started to piece things together," she said. "I overheard conversations they didn't think I could process. Dad talking about liquidity problems. Mom discussing with Harold how they could petition the courts for financial guardianship when I turned 25 if my condition persisted. Dr. Campbell assuring them that with the current medication regimen, there was little chance of improvement. Slowly, painfully, Lily began her secret resistance. She started by holding a single pill under her tongue during one medication time per day, spitting it out later when alone. As her mind cleared slightly, she became more strategic. She began documenting everything in a small notebook hidden inside her mattress. The worst part, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, was pretending, having to lie there while they discussed me like I was already gone. Sophia would cry sometimes when she thought I was asleep, real tears, like she actually missed me. Then, in the next breath, she'd be on the phone with her interior designer, planning how to spend my money once they had control of the trust. Over the past 8 months, Lily had been secretly building her strength, as well as her case. On days when the house was empty, she would practice standing, then walking short distances. She'd read medical books on her phone during the night to understand what they were giving her. She'd even managed to take photos of her medication bottles and send them to an online pharmacy forum, where a pharmacist confirmed they were not treatments for any known neurological condition, but were consistent with managing a sedated state. "I've been waiting for a chance like this," she finished. "Someone I could trust who would be here long enough to help me. When Margaret called you, I knew this might be my only shot." "Why didn't you reach out to Rachel directly before?" I asked. She always suspected something wasn't right. Lily looked down at her hands. "I tried once, left a note in her purse during a visit, but Harold found it first. He's always checking Rachel's things when she visits. The next day, they doubled my medication. I was barely conscious for a week. I felt sick thinking about what she'd endured. So what exactly are we up against? Who all is involved?" "Definitely my parents. They're the masterminds. Harold and Margaret are complicit. They've been helping keep me isolated and vouching for my condition to anyone who asks. Dr. Campbell is the medical authority, making it all possible. He's an old friend of Harold's from medical school." She paused. "The trust is managed by Brentwood Financial. The trustee, Mr. Winters, has only seen me twice since my illness began, both times when I was heavily sedated." I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. "And what you need is to either make it to your 25th birthday with your mental competency clearly established, or get married before they come back and stop me," she finished. "But first, we need evidence. Enough that they can't just drug me again and claim I had a psychotic episode or something. We need to prove what they've been doing." I nodded slowly, the enormity of the situation sinking in. This wasn't just about helping Lily escape, it was about bringing down a coordinated, years-long conspiracy orchestrated by her own family. People with money, connections, and the appearance of caring for an invalid daughter. People who had already shown they would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. "We've got 13 days before they get back," I said, pulling out my phone. "First thing we need to do is call Rachel. Then we need a doctor, a real one, and probably a lawyer." Lily's face showed fear, but underneath it was something stronger: determination, hope, and the first real chance at freedom she'd had in 3 years. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing me." The phone call to Rachel was emotional, to say the least. I put her on speaker so Lily could hear, and when I said, "There's someone here who wants to talk to you," Rachel's confused "What?" turned into a gasping sob as Lily simply said, "Hi, Rachel." "Oh my God, Lily, is that really you?" Rachel's voice cracked. "What's happening? How are you talking? Alex, what's going on?" I let Lily explain while I paced the room, already thinking through next steps. Rachel cycled through shock, rage, and finally steely determination. "I'm coming home right now," she declared. "I'll book the first flight out of Chicago." "No," I interrupted, surprising myself with how quickly the plan was forming. "If you suddenly cancel your exhibition, your parents might get suspicious. We need them to think everything is normal." "He's right," Lily agreed. "If they call to check on me and find out you're here, they'll know something's wrong." Rachel reluctantly agreed to stay put but insisted on being involved remotely. "We need evidence before they get back," she said. "Medical proof that Lily is being drugged, documentation of their plan, everything." By the end of the call, we had the beginnings of a strategy. Rachel would stay in Chicago, but would reach out to two key people. Elena Martinez, a neurologist she knew from college who practiced independently, and Sarah Wilson, an attorney who specialized in elder abuse cases, the closest parallel we could think of to Lily's situation. "I trust both of them completely," Rachel assured us, "and neither has any connection to your parents or mine." After hanging up, Lily and I did a complete inventory of what resources we had available. The Bennett mansion was like a fortress of wealth: security cameras, electronic locks, even that automated security system Harold had mentioned. Initially intimidating, we soon realized these could work in our favor. "The cameras," Lily pointed out. "If we can access the system, we might find recordings of them talking about what they're doing to me." Good point, but there was a problem. Harold said the system automatically arms at night. "I bet the footage is stored somewhere secure." Lily's smile surprised me. "Dad never changes his passwords. He uses the same one for everything: Sophia's birthday plus their anniversary." She borrowed my phone and pulled up the security company's app. Sure enough, after a few attempts, we were in. "We can't access archive footage remotely, but there's a control panel in Dad's office. And," she added with grim satisfaction, "we can turn off select cameras whenever we want." Our next task was gathering evidence of the medication scheme. I carefully collected samples from each pill container, storing them in labeled Ziploc bags from the kitchen. Lily directed me to her hidden notebook, cleverly concealed inside a hollowed-out copy of Jane Eyre on her bookshelf. "No one ever expects the bedridden girl to read the classics," she said with dark humor. The notebook was a damning record: 3 years of meticulous documentation. Dates, times, medications, overheard conversations, all in Lily's increasingly steady handwriting as she managed to reduce her intake of the drugs. The early entries were heartbreaking confused, sometimes just a few barely legible words, but they evolved into a clear chronicle of systematic abuse. "This is Jesus, Lily. This is enough to put them away," I said, flipping through the pages. "Maybe, but it's my word against theirs. They'll claim I made it all up during a delusional episode." Her pragmatism was sobering. "We need objective evidence: medical tests showing what's in my system, professional evaluations of my mental competence, and ideally, them admitting what they've done." By evening, Dr. Martinez had agreed to make a house call the following day. Sarah Wilson couldn't come in person, but scheduled a secure video conference to discuss legal options. Rachel had also reached out to her friend Detective Tom Carter, who worked in fraud investigation. He couldn't officially open a case without evidence, but he provided guidance on what kind of proof would be most compelling. "We need to document everything," I told Lily as we ate dinner together at the actual dining table, her first meal outside her bedroom in months. "Photos of your medication, videos of you functioning normally, recordings of any relevant phone calls that might come in from your family." Lily nodded, but I could see fatigue setting in. The day's excitement and stress were taking a toll on her still recovering body. "One day at a time," I reassured her. "Tomorrow we get medical evidence and legal advice. Then we start building the case. By the time they get back from Hawaii, we'll be ready." That night, I helped Lily back to her room but set up an air mattress on her floor rather than returning to my assigned guest room. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both knew the risk if anyone from the family made a surprise return. We needed to be ready to revert to the charade immediately. As I was settling in for the night, Lily spoke from her bed. "What if they fight back? They have resources, we don't. Connections, money." It was the question I'd been avoiding. The Bennetts were powerful people with a lot to lose. Cornered animals are the most dangerous kind. "We have one advantage they don't," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "They think you're incapacitated. They have no idea what's coming." "And we have Rachel," Lily added softly. "She always saw me, even when I couldn't speak." I smiled in the darkness. "Yeah. And now we have Dr. Martinez and Sarah Wilson. Tomorrow we'll have medical proof and a legal strategy." But as Lily's breathing steadied into sleep, I lay awake, mind racing. The stakes were impossibly high. If we failed, Lily wouldn't just lose her fortunes, he'd lose her freedom, maybe permanently this time. Her family would make sure of it. And they'd certainly make sure Rachel and I never got near her again. My phone vibrated with a text from Rachel. How is she really doing? I typed back the honest truth. Stronger than anyone I've ever met. But we're racing against time and up against people who've been planning this for years. Rachel's response came quickly. We're going to win, not just because we're right, but because they've never had to fight against Lily and me together. They have no idea what they're in for. Reading those words, I finally felt something like hope. This bizarre situation had thrown me into the middle of a family conspiracy, but it had also revealed the incredible strength of these two women. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure: I was on the right side of this fight. Dr. Martinez arrived promptly at 10 a.m. the next day, medical bag in hand and skepticism written across her face. Rachel had briefed her, but I could tell she was reserving judgment until she saw Lily for herself. That skepticism vanished the moment she entered Lily's room and found her patient sitting in a chair by the window, alert and articulate. Well, Dr. Martinez said after introductions, you certainly don't present like someone with advanced neurological deterioration. Her examination was thorough, checking reflexes, coordination, cognitive function, and memory. She drew blood samples, photographed the medication bottles, and recorded Lily's account of her experience. Medically speaking, this is disturbing, she concluded 2 hours later. These medications, in this combination, would create symptoms mimicking certain neurological conditions: drowsiness, muscle weakness, cognitive impairment, even speech difficulties. She packed her equipment with efficient movements. The blood work will confirm what's in your system now, but based on these pill samples and your current presentation, I have no doubt you've been systematically sedated without valid medical cause. Lily exhaled shakily. So you believe me? Miss Bennett, I've been a neurologist for 15 years. Your current functioning is incompatible with the diagnosis in those medical records. Someone has been medicating you inappropriately, and given the circumstances, the intent appears malicious. Dr. Martinez's professional demeanor softened slightly. I'll rush the blood work and have results tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm documenting everything for potential legal proceedings. After she left, our video call with Sarah Wilson provided the legal roadmap we needed. This falls under several categories of crime, the attorney explained, her voice crisp through my laptop speakers. Elder abuse laws can apply despite Lily's age because of her vulnerable status. There's financial exploitation, medical fraud, possibly false imprisonment, and definitely conspiracy. What do we need to make a case that will stick? I asked, taking notes. Medical evidence, which you're already gathering. Documentation of their intentions, recordings, emails, anything showing they're doing this for financial gain. And we need to establish Lily's current mental competence beyond any doubt. Sarah tapped her pen against her desk thoughtfully. They'll claim she had a temporary period of lucidity, or that she's delusional. We need multiple professionals attesting to her capacity. The next week passed in a blur of activity. Dr. Martinez's blood tests confirmed traces of sedatives and antipsychotics, despite Lily being off the medications for several days. She arranged for a colleague psychiatrist named Dr. Patelto conduct a formal competency evaluation, which Lily passed with flying colors. Your cognition is entirely normal, Dr. Patel assured her. If you experienced fog or confusion before, it was chemically induced, not the result of any underlying condition. While Lily worked with the medical professionals, I focused on gathering evidence from the house itself. The security system proved to be a goldmine. In Harold's office, I located the main control panel and, using Lily's intelligence about his passwords, accessed months of archive footage. Most was mundane, but several clips were damning. James and Sophia in Lily's room, discussing the financial strain while she appeared to be sleeping. Harold on the phone with Dr. Campbell, saying they needed to maintain her current state until they could secure legal guardianship. Even Margaret, coldly telling a visiting friend that poor Lily's condition means her finances will need management indefinitely. I downloaded everything to a secure cloud account Rachel had set up. Detective Carter reviewed the footage remotely and confirmed it strengthened our case considerably, though he warned we needed more explicit evidence of their intentions. That came on day 9, when James called to check in. I put the call on speaker while Lily hid in the adjoining bathroom. "Everything going smoothly with Lily?" he asked, his voice artificially casual. "All according to schedule," I replied, equally casual. "Following the medication routine exactly as Sophia showed me." "Good, good." He paused. "You know, Alex, I've been meaning to ask. Has Rachel ever discussed Lily's financial situation with you?" I feigned ignorance. "Financial situation? I thought her care was covered by the family." "Well, yes. But there's the matter of her trust fund. Substantial amount. We're looking at options for long-term management since, well, Lily's condition is unlikely to improve." His voice lowered. "Between us, there might be a consulting opportunity for you and Rachel. Once we secure legal guardianship next year, we'll need help managing her assets. Could be quite lucrative." My skin crawled, but I kept my tone interested. "That sounds like something we definitely want to discuss. When you get back, maybe?" "Excellent." The relief in his voice was palpable. "I knew you'd understand the situation. Family, helping family, right?" After he hung up, Lily emerged from the bathroom, face pale but determined. "Got it all?" she asked. I nodded, stopping the recording app on my phone. Every incriminating word. With the pieces falling into place, we focused on Lily's physical recovery. 3 years of minimal movement had weakened her significantly. Each day, we increased her walking distance first around her room, then the upstairs hallway, finally tackling the grand staircase. I supported her weight as she grimaced through the pain, determined to regain her strength. "I want to walk into the room on my own when they return," she declared after a particularly grueling session. "I want to see their faces when they realize I'm not their puppet anymore." By day 12, our evidence was substantial. Medical reports confirming inappropriate medication, psychiatric evaluations establishing Lily's competence, security footage showing family discussions of their plan, and audio recordings of James explicitly linking Lily's condition to her trust fund. Sarah Wilson had prepared preliminary legal filings, ready to submit the moment the Bennetts returned. The final piece came together when Mr. Winters, the trustee from Brentwood Financial, agreed to a video meeting. Rachel had reached out, expressing concerns about the family's management of Lily's care. Initially hesitant, he changed his tune completely when faced with Lily herself failed, articulate, and rightfully angry. "Miss Bennett, I was led to believe your condition prevented communication," he stammered. "That's exactly what we need to discuss, Mr. Winters," Lily replied steadily. "My condition was manufactured by my family to control my trust fund." The trustee's horror appeared genuine as we presented our evidence. "This is deeply troubling. The trust was explicitly designed to benefit you, not your family. Your grandparents were quite clear about that." He confirmed what we suspected. Sophia and James had been making increasingly aggressive inquiries about accessing the trust, citing Lily's medical needs. They had already scheduled a competency hearing for shortly after her 25th birthday, with Dr. Campbell prepared to testify about her permanent incapacitation. "Rest assured, I will cooperate fully with any investigation," Mr. Winters promised, "and I can immediately freeze any attempts by your family to access those funds." On the eve of the Bennetts' return, Lily, Rachel, who had flown in that morning, her exhibition successfully concluded, and I sat at the dining room table, reviewing our strategy one final time. Detective Carter had agreed to be present for the confrontation, along with Dr. Martinez and Sarah Wilson. The security cameras were adjusted to record every angle of the living room where we planned to meet the returning family. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Rachel asked Lily, squeezing her hand. Lily looked around the mansion that had been her prison for 3 years, then back at Usher Unlikely Rescue Team. "I've been ready since the day they first drugged me," she said quietly. "Tomorrow, I get my life back." That night, none of us slept much. The next morning, we received word that the Bennett's flight had landed. In a few hours, they would arrive home to find their carefully constructed scheme completely dismantled and their supposedly helpless victim standing on her own 2 feet, backed by medical evidence, legal support, and the unwavering testimony of her own clear mind. The stage was set for a confrontation 3 years in the making. The security system chimed at 2:17 p.m., announcing the opening of the front gate. Detective Carter positioned himself discreetly in Harold's study. Dr. Dashid, Martinez, and Sarah Wilson waited in the kitchen. Rachel, Lily, and I took our places in the grand living room, Rachel and I on the sofa, Lily choosing to stand by the fireplace despite her still shaky legs. She refused the chair I offered. "I've spent 3 years lying down," she said firmly. "They see me on my feet first." The sound of car doors slamming echoed from outside. Keys jingled in the lock. And then the front door swung open, revealing Harold and Margaret in the lead, tanned from their Hawaiian vacation, with Sophia and James right behind them, luggage in tow. "Alexander, we're—" Harold's greeting died in his throat as his gaze landed on Lily. The suitcase fell from Margaret's hand with a thud that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent house. For 3 endless seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The tableau was frozen in a moment of pure shock, the Bennetts staring at Lily, Lily staring back, chin raised defiantly. Sophia broke first. "Lily?" she whispered, her voice a mixture of disbelief and something else. Was it fear? "What are you doing out of bed?" "Hello, Mother," Lily replied, her voice steady despite the slight tremor I could see in her hands. "Welcome home. We need to talk." James recovered next, his face morphing from shock to a practiced concern with alarming speed. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't be up. You could hurt yourself." He took a step forward, doctor's voice activated. "This kind of activity could trigger an episode. Let me help you back to—" "Don't," Lily said, the single word sharp enough to freeze him mid-step. "Don't pretend to care about my health now. Not after what you've done." Harold's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation, gaze darting from Lily to Rachel to me. Always the strategist, I could almost see him calculating odds, formulating a response. "I'm not sure what's going on here, but Lily is clearly having some sort of episode. Alexander, I'm disappointed you would encourage this behavior when you were explicitly instructed." "Cut the crap, Dad," Rachel interjected. "We know everything." Margaret stepped forward, her society smile firmly in place despite the tension radiating from her. "Lily, darling, these confusions are part of your condition. Why don't we all calm down and get you back to your room? Dr. Campbell can be here within the hour." "Dr. Campbell won't be necessary," came a new voice, as Elena Martinez emerged from the kitchen. "I've already conducted a thorough examination of Lily. She's suffering from medication-induced sedation, not any neurological condition." The calculated shock on Sophia's face might have been convincing if we hadn't already seen the truth. "Who are you? How dare you examine my daughter without permission? We have a family doctor who has been helping you drug her into submission for 3 years. I finished, standing up. "We have the blood tests to prove it." "This is absurd," Harold blustered, his face reddening. "Alexander, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but involving Rachel in some delusional—" "It's not a game," Detective Carter said, stepping into the room and showing his badge. "Thomas Carter, Financial Crimes Division. We have evidence of a deliberate conspiracy to chemically restrain Lily Bennett for the purpose of gaining control of her trust fund." The atmosphere shifted instantly. James went pale. Margaret's smile became fixed, her eyes darting toward the door as if calculating an escape route. Harold's face settled into the hard mask of a man preparing for legal battle. But it was Sophia's reaction that struck me, most tears welling in her eyes. Whether from guilt or the realization that she'd been caught, I couldn't tell. "This is a family matter," Harold declared coldly. "Whatever Lily thinks has happened, she's clearly confused. Her medical records are fraudulent," Sarah Wilson said, joining the group with a portfolio tucked under her arm. "As Lily's newly retained attorney, I've had those records reviewed by multiple independent specialists. The diagnosis is inconsistent with her symptoms, and the prescribed medications are inappropriate for any legitimate neurological condition." James attempted a different approach, his voice softening. "Lily, honey, you're confused. The medication helps you. Without it, you have these delusional episodes where you think we're hurting you. Remember last time? how frightened you were." "I recorded you, Dad," Lily said quietly, and the room went still again. "On the phone with Alex, discussing how you plan to use my condition to gain control of my trust fund, offering him money to cooperate." The color drained from James's face. "We have security footage too," Rachel added. "Years of it. All those conversations you had in Lily's room thinking she couldn't understand, discussing how to maintain her current state until you could secure guardianship." Harold's lawyer face fully emerged. "These accusations are outrageous. Any recordings were clearly taken out of context. Lily has been ill for years, and we've devoted ourselves to her care. This ambush is nothing but an attempt by Rachel to drive a wedge in the family, as usual." 5 million reasons," Lily said, her voice cutting through the tension. "That's what this was about. 5 million reasons why you decided your daughter was better to you as a vegetable than as a person." Sophia finally broke. "It wasn't like that," she cried. "We were trying to protect you. You were making irrational decisions about the money, about that boy." "Maiko," Lily supplied coldly. "His name was Maiko, and I loved him, and you drove him away." "He wasn't right for you," Sophia insisted, tears streaming now. "You were going to marry him just to get the money, throw it all away on some environmental crusade. So you decided to drug me instead?" Lily's voice rose for the first time. "To keep me prisoner in my own body for 3 years?" The silence that followed was damning. No one denied it. No one could. Detective Carter stepped forward. "James and Sophia Bennett, I'm placing you under arrest for financial exploitation, conspiracy, and unlawful restraint. Harold and Margaret Bennett, you're being arrested as accessories to these crimes." "This is outrageous," Harold sputtered, as Carter called in uniformed officers waiting outside. "I'll have your badge for this. Do you know who I am in this community?" "A man who helped imprison his granddaughter for money," Carter replied evenly. "And yes, I know exactly who you are." As the officers read them their rights, the facades finally crumbled. James looked shell-shocked, as if he couldn't comprehend how his plan had failed. Sophia openly wept, repeatedly saying, "We were trying to help you, Lily. You have to believe that." Margaret maintained her rigid dignity even as handcuffs were placed on her wrists, while Harold immediately demanded his phone call to the family attorney. Throughout it all, Lily remained standing, watching with an expression that mixed vindication with deep sadness. Only when the Bennetts were being let out did her strength finally waver. I moved quickly to her side, supporting her elbow as she swayed slightly. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly. She watched her family, her jailers, being escorted to police cars outside. "No," she answered honestly, "but I will be." As the front door closed behind them, Lily's legs finally gave out. Rachel and I caught her before she could fall, helping her to the sofa. Dr. Martinez immediately came to check her vitals. "It's just adrenaline crash," Lily assured us, though she looked utterly drained. "I've been imagining that moment for so long. I never really believed it would happen." Rachel sat beside her, taking her hand. "It's over now. They can't hurt you anymore." Lily looked around the mansion that had been her prison, then back at the people who had helped free her. "No," she said with the first genuine smile I'd seen on her face. "They can't." The Bennett family empire had crumbled in a single afternoon, but from its ruins, Lily was finally reclaiming her life. 6 months after that fateful confrontation, Rachel, Lily, and I sat in a sunlit courtyard cafe in downtown Manhattan, sharing breakfast and planning Lily's upcoming 25th birthday celebration. The legal proceedings against the Bennett family had moved with surprising speed, largely due to the overwhelming evidence we had gathered. James and Sophia had accepted a plea deal rather than face a public trial 15 years each for exploitation of a vulnerable adult, unlawful restraint, and conspiracy. Harold and Margaret received 10 years as accessories, though Harold continued to appeal his conviction from prison, maintaining they were only trying to help their granddaughter. Dr. Campbell lost his medical license and faced his own separate charges for medical fraud and malpractice. The investigation had uncovered other patients who had been similarly overmedicated for the financial benefit of their families. Discovery that turned what might have been a family scandal into a high-profile case that made national headlines. Did you see this? Rachel passed her phone across the table, showing a news article about proposed legislation nicknamed Lily's Law Enhanced Penalties for those who exploit vulnerable adults for financial gain. Lily smiled faintly as she scanned the article. The past months had been a journey of recovery, physically, emotionally, and legally. Physical therapy had restored most of her strength, though she still occasionally used a cane on particularly tiring days. Trauma counseling was helping her process the betrayal and isolation she'd endured. "Never thought I'd have a law named after me," she remarked, handing the phone back. "Especially not before I even finish my degree." That was another victory. Lily had re-enrolled at NYU to complete her environmental science program, determined to reclaim the future that had been stolen from her. Her trust fund, now under her full control, was providing not just for her education but for a foundation she was establishing to help other victims of exploitation. "How's the apartment hunting going?" I asked, refilling her coffee cup. One of Lily's first decisions after gaining her freedom was that she would never again live in the Bennett mansion. The property had been sold, the proceeds split between legal costs and Lily's foundation. "Found a place in the East Village," she said. "Nothing fancy, but it's mine. No electronic locks, no security systems, and definitely no medication schedules." Rachel laughed. "And just a 15-minute subway ride from our place. Perfect for impromptu dinner visits." That was perhaps the most beautiful outcome of this terrible ordeal, the bond that had formed between Rachel and her niece. Where there had once been an enforced distance, there was now an unshakable connection. "Have you heard anything from Michael?" I asked carefully, knowing it was still a tender subject. Lily shook her head. "I sent him that email explaining everything. But it's been 3 years. He's moved on, and that's okay." She smiled with genuine acceptance. "Some things you can't get back. I'm focusing on what's ahead, not what I lost." Her resilience continued to amaze me. After everything she'd endured, Lily approached each day with determination rather than bitterness. She was healing on her own terms, rebuilding a life of her own design. "Oh, before I forget," Rachel said, reaching into her bag. "This came yesterday." She handed Lily a formal-looking envelope. Lily opened it, reading quickly, then looked up with tears in her eyes. "The trustee hearing. It's been scheduled for next month." "Just a formality now, but," she took a deep breath, "my grandparents' trust will officially be under my sole control." We raised our coffee cups in a toast. "To Edward and Eleanor Sullivan," Rachel said, "who loved their granddaughter enough to try to protect her, even if they couldn't have imagined from what. And to finding family where you least expect it," Lily added, smiling at us. "Sometimes the people who save you aren't the ones you were born to, but the ones who see you when no one else does." I thought about that first shocking moment when Lily had stood up and spoken to me, asking for help. How differently things might have gone if I'd reacted with disbelief instead of trust. How many people in similar situations never found someone to believe them? "You know," I said, "you saved yourself, Lily. You were fighting back long before we came along, hiding those pills, keeping that journal, staying aware enough to recognize an opportunity when it came. We just helped with the last part." She considered this, then nodded slowly. "Maybe we saved each other. Isn't that what family is supposed to do?" As we finished our breakfast and stepped out into the busy Manhattan morning, I watched Lily navigate the crowded sidewalk with growing confidence. No longer the prisoner in a mansion of secrets, she moved through the world as a woman, reclaiming her power one day at a time. The Bennett family had sought to silence her for money. Instead, they had created a voice that would now speak for others who couldn't speak for themselves. In trying to bury her, they had never considered that she might be a seedone that would grow back stronger, more resilient, and ultimately bloom into something beautiful they could never control.